Loosely based on a character seen in writings about the famous Charlemagne, the knight Astolfo is a rider-class servant who brings along a variety of mythical armaments that let him either soar through the sky or simply play with his foes. Astolfo can be hard to get a handle on at first, and in some ways can be said to be the joke character of this game, but let's stop and see if this warrior, despite his small stature, can still measure up. Astolfo's normal attack string consists of 5 attacks. He will slash right, down and left, rush forward and thrust, strike his lance into the ground and spin on it, and then finish with a series of flips and a strike downwards. This is a pretty simple attack string, which generally has Astolfo not moving much at all until he goes flying off or spinning on his lance. Even with this, the range is not that great, so let's see if it's backed up through slightly better unique attacks. For Astolfo's C1 heavy attack, he will bring out his mystical lance and do a quick thrust forward with it. Like most heavy attacks, this is just a spacer and a small source of damage. Its main use is as a quick way to throw your enemy back, and as is the case for this rider, is a function that is very useful given some of his high mobility active skills that we'll get to a little bit later. Next up we have his C2, which is always the launcher or juggler. For Astolfo, he will summon his hippogriff to fly upwards from the floor, launching any enemies up while keeping himself on the ground. If you wish to pile on more damage to your juggled foes, you can try to catch them before they land, or jump up to perform your own 3-hit aerial combo, with Astolfo's finisher having him slam down on the spot. For his next unique attack, he will dash and perform a very quick slash with his blade, doing heavy damage while also sending your foes flying back. This is both a great damage source and setup for later damage. All in all, a very solid attack. Next up for his C4, he will swing his lance around before releasing it, where it flies directly forward of where you started the attack. I call this one the Super Mario 64. While not a complicated move, in fact kind of a silly one, this is yet another solid attack with multiple uses, both as a quick way to punish enemies around you, as well as long-range damage by utilizing just the lance throw. For his last unique attack, Astolfo will quite simply call forth his hippogriff like his C2, but this time having it fly very briefly in front of him. Although this attack doesn't fly out as far as I think it should, it does have a very wide hitbox, and will typically hit a lot more enemies in front of you than you'd probably think. Another benefit is that it is incredibly fast, one of the faster final unique attacks out there. All in all, a very welcome addition. Even though his normal attack string did leave something to be desired, that definitely isn't the case here. His C4 is straight up a great attack, and all the others around it more than hold their own weight. While a little bit more range on some of them, like the C3 and C5 would have been great, this is more than made up for by their overall speed. Things are looking good so far, but let's see if Astolfo's active skills will continue this increasing improvement. Here is where I first run down the active skills alongside their own descriptions before I go into detail about my own take on them and recommendations for your build. Let's go! 1. Consecutive flash of the small sword. After repeated attacks with a short sword, move in and repeatedly stab. 2. Hippogriff rush. Ride in on your hippogriff and rush in. You can somewhat control the direction you go in. 3. Hippogriff tornado. Summon your hippogriff, which creates a tornado from the flapping of its wings. 4. Power up. Temporarily increase your attack power and movement speed. 5. Touch it and fall. Sweep with the golden lance, stunning enemies. 6. Luna Break Manual. Enter a guard state, which nullifies enemy attacks and automatically counterattacks for a brief time. And 7. La Black Luna. Make the magic flute grow and blast out sound waves, slowing enemies. Let's start with the best. Power Up is one of the better buff skills in this game, giving you bonuses to 2 stats rather than the usual just 1. It can be unintuitive for some people to remember to keep on using these buffing skills, and I know it's always a pain when you realize that you've left it unused when you could have been improving everything you've been doing. So I really recommend just getting into the habit of checking your cooldown bar frequently. Next up, although it is way too long of a skill, Hippogriff Rush is rather necessary to bring along due to it being Astolfo's only rider class skill. Being honest, I'm not really a fan of this skill, mainly from how it throws enemies back and can be hard to get consistent damage from. But in this game, rush attacks simply do too much damage to ignore, and bringing skills that match your class initiate them much more than other skills. If you also find this skill too unwieldy to get much use out of, then there is a solution. You can instead use one of your installed skill slots to power up a different type of skill. I recommend using Imperial Privilege Saber. With this skill installed, Astolfo's active skill, Consecutive Flash of the Small Sword, gets a boost while also initiating initiating more rush attacks. Simply doing this makes Astolfo a lot stronger, due to him having a lot of other ways to consistently set up his foes for rush damage, and the multiple hits of this attack make it a lot easier to aim and give you more likelihood that a rush will happen. Next up, Touch It and Fall is simply one of the best stun skills around. It's incredibly fast, has a very wide hitbox all around him, and by stunning enemies from all directions, it also makes sure that Astolfo is going to be safe and won't lose his combo meter as you then try to pile in more damage or initiate a rush with your attack skill. Backing this up, you could bring along La Black Luna, although slowing your enemies down is not nearly as valuable as having a stun. So instead of it, I would advise including Luna Break Manual, your counter guard skill, as your last slot filler. Astolfo, along with 3 others, have the second worst final defense stat in the game, topping off only at 1350. This means that having a defense skill in your back pocket to rely on when things are going sideways is very important. Without having anything extra to add about Astolfo's drive skill and Noble Phantasm, let's go ahead and see where he sits amongst this cast. When closely examining Astolfo, it quickly becomes clear that despite the goofball persona that he puts on in the story, he is definitely no joke. From his solid set of normal and unique attacks to his skills, which contain a lot of variety for both crowd control and pushing your own offense, there is a lot of power packed into this little body. Like other very technical characters like Robin Hood, Astolfo needs a proper build in order to show off his true prowess. But once you come to understanding how to equip and use him, he can truly become a terrifying force on the battlefield. It does take a little bit longer to learn him over the more straightforward servants, but nevertheless, Astolfo's flexible attack style and solid foundations do land him as an average to above average servant. Don't let this rider's demeanor fool you. He is a knight, he knows what he's doing, and now that you do as well, you are free to mount your ride and take to the skies.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
I'd like to give a special thank you to my top patrons Minute Rice, Henry Gutierrez, and Ignis Isel, as well as everybody else who's currently supporting me on Patreon. Thank you all very much.